From the Predator revealing there was only one obstacle standing in the way of the fight, to White claiming he's not interested in making it happen anymore. Here's all about Francis Ngannou pushing for a bout against Jon Jones. Things aren't looking too good for now, because according to Ngannou, all parties are down, except one. The Cameroonian's exit from the UFC has made things even harder, because he left the promotion on really bad terms with the president. White's bitter about the whole situation, especially because he lost one of the best fighters he's ever going to get his hands on, despite offering him a deal that he said would make him the highest-earning heavyweight fighter in the UFC. And because of that, White's been bashing the fighter ever since he left the UFC. He vented his fury out by making some pretty wild claims, saying that Ngannou was afraid of going up against Jones and was impossible to deal with. He even said the Predator would never be welcomed into the UFC again, and it got to the point where Francis had to tell him to back off, saying that the only reason he left the promotion was because he was tired of its restrictions and couldn't navigate his career the way he wanted to. So who really has the right to be grumpy about it? Since then, Ngannou's only been winning. He's bagged an amazing deal with the PFL, which allows him to compete in MMA and pursue boxing at the same time, something he wasn't allowed to do in the UFC. Besides that, the deal also made him a minority equity owner, a member of the PFL Advisory Board, and the chairman of PFL Africa. It's a contract that's never been offered before in the history of MMA. But while he may have gotten rid of the UFC's contracts, he hasn't seen the last of its president yet, because White's the only one standing between his fight with Jones. The two were originally supposed to face each other while Francis was still under the promotion, but things didn't work out, and Bones even called him a big-ass pussy for leaving the UFC, because the two were linked to a fight for over 3 years. And as things are looking bleak for a potential showdown, Francis stated that the fight was still possible, in the interest of giving the fans what they want. But there's just one obstacle standing in the way of it ever happening. Can you guess it? Yep, it's none other than the UFC. And after seeing how petty White was after one of his best heavyweights decided to drop him, he'll be making it hell for Francis to secure a fight with Jones. Even though, if you look at it from a business point of view, he should be all for it, because the amount of views this fight's gonna bring in will be massive. We all know that Dana would do anything to bring in some cash, but he'll be missing out on some major bag if he doesn't make this fight happen. The hype it's created in the last couple of years is crazy, and it's not gonna die anytime soon. It's clear that everyone's down for the fight, even both Jon and Francis themselves. The two have even taken some shots at each other recently, and Jones tweeted that Ngannou calls himself the baddest man on the planet from across the street, asking who even does that. But Francis isn't one to sit back and listen, and in response to the heavyweight champ, he told him to cross the street. So it's clear that both of them want to go at each other. So now the only party who needs to get with the crowd is the UFC. The two also came face-to-face during a PFL event in Atlanta, and exchanged some words and had a stare-down. But the confrontation was surprisingly respectful, compared to the complete violations we usually see. Bones mocked Ngannou saying, "You don't want no smoke," before they laughed and shook hands. Ngannou mentioned that he's looking forward to fighting Jones one day, to which he replied, "We'll see," questioning whether he could handle his wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Two of the greatest heavyweight champions in the same ring, everyone would go wild for that matchup.
Loading big punches right there, and this is the end that you're watching right here.
While the face-off definitely created some buzz online, giving deprived fans some hope through their interaction, it also rubbed many people the wrong way. They pointed out that an actual fight was nowhere to be seen. Despite all the gossip surrounding the bout, they were yet to see either parties take any action to make it happen. They want to see a proper showdown, not the two dapping each other up every event they bump into. Even former MMA artist Chael Sonnen was super annoyed and dragged the two on his YouTube channel. He said that their agencies tried to sidestep a potential match, even though they could have easily made it happen. And then, they shoved them both into the same building together, knowing they couldn't fight each other just to rub it in our faces. Them going face-to-face at an event rather than at a fight that everyone's been waiting for was next-level cowardly stuff. Even the idea of a potential match between the two had MMA fans majorly hyped up, because both Jones and Ngannou are names you want to look out for. On one side, we've got the Predator, who holds the record for the world's most powerful punch, and is labeled as one of the greatest heavyweight fighters in the world. White even mentioned that getting hit by Francis was like getting rammed over by a Ford Escort going full speed. The guy's a huge deal in the world of MMA, which explains why he had a long list of pursuits ready to take him under their wing as soon as he left the UFC. On the other hand, Bones is no joke either. He's only lost once by disqualification in more than a decade of fighting. And not only that, but he also staked his claim as the best UFC fighter of all time, after defeating former champion Cyril Gane in less than 3 minutes at UFC 285. So imagine these two stepping in the ring together. Goosebumps, guys! Which brings up the question, who would win if the two go up against each other? There is no wrong answer here, folks. How do you favor one beast over the other? Jones has perfected his incredible reach and balance, and not to mention that he has an insane training schedule and is super disciplined with his routine. He studies all of his opponents, adjusting his style to the moves they usually make, so it's super hard to catch him off guard, considering the way he fights is unique to each bout, making him impossible to predict. On the other hand, Ngannou's fists don't need no introduction. You don't want to be on the receiving end of that. One slip up and you're out. While some would argue Jones is more skilled with a jaw-dropping 27-1 record, the Predator packs power unlike anyone else. But then again, power isn't everything in MMA, and Jon's victory over Gane proves that. He didn't even break a sweat during the entire bout, while Ngannou's fight with Gane went on for a while. But to give the former UFC champ some credit, he did tear both his MCL and ACL only a month before he went up against Gane, and still managed to overpower him. Now, if we're talking about records, Jones takes the cake. He's technically undefeated, and his only loss was actually a disqualification against Matt Hamill, so he's never been put down before. The Predator does have 3 losses, however, but before Jones's fans start getting cocky, there's still the argument that the 35-year-old should have a loss on his record after his performance against Dominic Reyes, which is widely called a robbery. So who'd win? It's still impossible to pick a side, even for Joe Rogan. Although the UFC commentator is incredibly impressed with Bones, saying that he's amazing at using his height to his advantage, but one hit from the Cameroonian and it's over. But I hate to burst your bubble after creating all this hype, because unless White's done sulking, I doubt the match will ever take place. It's all in his hands now, and when he was asked about the fight in an interview, all he had to say was that he wasn't interested in making that fight happen anymore. According to the president, he tried to get Ngannou to fight for over 2 years while he was in the UFC, but he didn't want to do it. He also said that Jones would have handled the Predator the same way he did Gane at UFC 285. So yeah, things are looking pretty weak from his end, but fans are still gonna pray to the MMA lords the fight becomes reality somehow, because it's way too good of a matchup to miss out on. So, from White claiming he's not interested in making it happen anymore, to the Predator revealing there was only one obstacle standing in the way of the fight. That's all about Francis Ngannou pushing for the bout against Jon Jones.